This is Steve Bloom, and you're watching Moana Nui Podcast. We'll be starting soon. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Veronica Taylor, and from myself and Ash Ketchum, I just want to say, Moana Nui, I choose you!
Aloha, everyone, and thank you for joining our next episode on the Moana Nui Podcast. I'm very excited that you can join us for today. Of course, as you that have tuned in before or those that may be new to the show, this is our Develop Your Talent segment that we have with the illustrious Miss Sue Ann Hong right here to my right. She is the founder and CEO of CAPAW, which is the Center for Asian Professional American Women. Definitely check out her website and definitely support the organization because they do a lot of great things within the community. And of course, for today's episode, we are talking about emotional intelligence and clarity. But before we get into that, I'm going to first introduce our guest, and then I'm going to hand it over to Sue-Ann. Our first guest is Yan Na. Throughout her career, Nan has led organizational effectiveness and leadership development efforts in Fortune 100 and high-growth companies, including Warner Brothers, the New York Times, Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, and Nordstrom. She partners with clients to accelerate performance by leveraging research and assessments to design customized solutions. Jan's research area centers also identify and its impact on leadership potential. She shares her peer-reviewed research on Asian women in leadership at conferences, companies, and colleges. Jan is also the founder of Radiance HQ, an organization dedicated to advancing Asian women in the workplace. And help me welcome Jan Han, PhD.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Hello.
Good to see you.
And please know, these intros do not cover the amazing talents of all of our panelists. Our next panelist is Julie Wong. She is the founder of I Empower Coaching, and it is a leadership coach. She is a leadership coach with a passion to ignite the next generation of leaders to live their dream of a better world. She is the coach that she wished she had as a high-ranking person of color in several organizations. Julie brings 30 years of experience as a leader, administrator, and a mentor. She served in the C-suite as the vice president of student affairs at several universities and worked for 3 presidents. Julie is passionate about empowering leaders of color to eliminate self-doubt, embrace their power, and lead with confidence. Everyone, please help me welcome Julie M. Wong, PhD.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. And last and certainly not least, our next panelist is Leslie Mo Kaiser, PhD. She is a principal Uh, she's principal of Ladies of the Court and president of the Dynasty Pearls and past president of OCA National. A major theme in her professional life has been developing leadership and self determination in women of color. A certified tennis professional, Leslie's current women's development project provides pro bono private tennis lessons around the country to women players 50 years and better. I love that. Retired from a corporate career of developing Asian DEI forums and building State Farm's coalition with National Asian American Pacific Islander organizations. Today, she provides services to individuals and organizations on a intercultural competency, funding strategies, and leadership development. And help me welcome Leslie Mo Kaiser, PhD. Welcome, Leslie.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to be with this wonderful group. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, with that, I'm going to hand everything over to Sue-Ann. Sue-Ann, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Dana, and for giving me a promotion to founder, though I'm not the founder of the organization. I'm the president and CEO, but thank you, though. I appreciate it. So first of all, I am so excited, everyone, to be in this conversation with these incredible, incredible leaders in all kinds of spaces. I feel like we pretty much have covered the sector between the four of us, between corporate, entrepreneur, government, academia, and what? I mean, like every sector is covered. So our conversation, I think, is going to be pretty rich. So let me start off with just the question about what is your ethnic heritage? And can you share how your career journey kind of evolved? Let me start with Jan.
Okay. Well, thank you again for having us, Sue-Ann. It's so great to be here. So my ethnic heritage is that I identify as a Korean immigrant. I came to the United States with my parents when I was 8 years old, decades ago now, so many decades ago. Didn't speak a word of the English language, and I just had to adapt going into first grade for the first time. And I still remember that first moment when you looked out onto the sea of blonde, blue-eyed kids and feeling like you didn't belong. So with that said, I think my career journey has been that, just seeking out meaning and seeking out ways to contribute to organizations. And I've actually had 3 careers: finance, advertising, sales, and now, I am doing work where I can contribute not to the bottom line in that I'm selling advertising space or anything like that. I'm contributing to the bottom line through the development of companies and their people. So that's where my focus is. And there was a big awakening that happened soon after September 11th. I felt like, you know what, I'm making great money in advertising sales, but it's soul sucking in some ways, right? So, and I think every person during their career journey or during their life journey, you experience that turning point, and that was a big turning point for me. So I love what I do now. I worked inside as an employee, leading in different capacities in many different organizations, and now I work independent as a consultant, coach, and also as a researcher. So I love it.
Amazing. And we're going to go into a deeper conversation specifically about your work. But Julie, how about sharing your story?
Okay. I was a little frozen there. Okay. Let's see. I'm 3rd generation Chinese American, born and raised in San Francisco. My grandfather came here when he was 12. Unfortunately, I only speak English. My parents are bilingual and I grew up listening to bilingual, but I think part of the assimilation process for me, I just was like learning only English. And I probably speak more Spanish than I do Chinese. Let's see. I got into higher ed because after my bachelor's degree, I wanted to get more education because, it's the Asian thing to do. So I was like, should I get MBA, but I'm not really into business. Should I get a master's in public administration, go into government, or should I get a master's in education? And I thought about it and I said, you know what? In my 4 or 5 years in undergrad, I never saw an Asian American administrator or leader. Now, granted, that was a long time ago, but I don't think it's that different today. And so I wanted to go into higher education because I wanted to be a leader and a role model for Asian Americans. And I guess the turning point, so I mean, I loved being in higher ed, and I was an advocate, and I went in to mentor Asian Americans, but to my delight and joy, I began to be mentoring like people of color. I mean, it was beyond Asian American, African American, Latino, GLBT. It was a wonderful career. But my last position, I was a vice president, and my boss called me in one day and said, you know, this is the end of the road. So when you serve in the cabinet, you serve at the will of the president, and they can let you go in public institutions for no reason whatsoever. And so I had a rude awakening. It's like, wow, I can retire after 30 years. That's a good thing about higher education. But what is it that I really want to do? What is my passion? How can I give back? And, you know, what's going to be my legacy for the third chapter of my life? And what I really loved to do was to mentor young people to get to the next level. And I was always taught, you know, you climb the ladder, you don't just keep going. You turn around, you bring people back up the ladder. So I found coaching. I never knew about coaching. I always knew about mentoring, but coaching is so different. And it really, I just feel like it's my calling. I just love to inspire people and to just help them get to the next level. I'm a leadership nerd. I love leadership. I loved being in leadership, and I love helping people of color become comfortable and just really go for it. So that's how I became a coach.
I can't figure, I don't feel your enthusiasm at all, Julie. I just wanted to tell you, like, I can literally, I feel the energy coming through the screen and like hitting me right between the eyes. I love it. I love your passion. And by the way, I told my mom, and both my parents are, by the way, in education. I said, you guys have so many degrees, but you make no money. I will not be in academia. So I said, I'm going into business. So with that, how about you, Leslie?
Oh gosh, I'm laughing here because I feel the same way about Julie's story. And, you know, when you talk, you know, and I could relate with you too. Oh my gosh. But, you know, once an educator, always an educator. We're always trying to bring out the best in people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can't help it. It's just, you know, it's like you're just there and that's your calling. My first career was a college professor, and my teaching areas were Asian art history and East Asian philosophies. And I would have done that for $1 a year. I mean, it was wonderful. And, you know, I'd always had an interest in psychology. And also when I went through my second doctoral program, you know, who does that, right? You talk about, what do? You get another degree. So, you know, one of my fields was psychology, and I loved it, you know, because it's just who we are. Mm-hmm. And so it was formalizing that and learning, you know, what therapists do and all the training and all that. It made me a very humble person. Oh my goodness. So that was my first career, was teaching. And then after the funding for Asian studies programs around the country, you know, were cut off in the 70s, the mid 70s, late 70s, I started a business with a partner. And what we did was we worked with American corporations that wanted to do business in China. And China had opened up, you know, in the early 70s. So that's what we did. We trained people, American corporations, to work and live in China. Mm-hmm. And we also did the opposite. We trained Japanese bankers from a Japanese banking corporate consortium. We trained them in Western, specifically American banking structure and practices. And by golly, all of them who succeeded in this program became their representatives in newly established branch banks in New York City and around the world. I mean, that was the purpose. So, that was the business part of me that was satisfied. So then our business changed to more negotiating, and that's not my cup of tea. So my partner, did the traveling and negotiating in China, and I went and did something else. And what I did was I worked for a financial services company, and one of the best companies in the United States, State Farm. And at that time, they were ranked 15 in the Fortune 500. So I thought, oh my God, how did I end up here? An art historian and philosophy major and practitioner to financial services. Well, truth be told, my BBA is in accounting and economics. I didn't like it, but I ended up in this wonderful company, and I grew as I have never grown before. They gave me a job that was specifically Asian American organizations.
Oh, wow.
And doing the liaison, developing the relationships, making grants, sitting on their boards, helping them get from point A to point C. Sometimes you don't get there, you just get bogged down and bogged down. So in any business, in Sue-Ann, that you've got to show results. So I learned how to be a board member. I was teaching, so to speak, but it was helping organizations reach their organizational and HR goals and whatever else. I loved it. Oh my goodness. So I had held some board positions, and when I retired, I became president of OCA and stayed on the board at CAPAW, and I just had a ball. And then I went back to my pearl business, Dynasty Pearls. I figured in retirement, what do I really want to do? I loved making women happy and empowering women. So I tried my pearl business for 1 year, and I loved it again. So I still do that. And then I love tennis. In fact, Miss Hawaii, I'm a rainbow warrior, and I was on a tennis scholarship at UH.
Wow.
So it's been a part of my life, and I can share it. And goodness knows, I don't need to do it like I needed to do it, raising kids for extra income. So I give it away. And I think it's a way of giving back to tennis for what it gave to me. It gave me a college education and other things too. It teaches you, sports teaches you so many things, as you know. But I can give it to women 50 and better, because they have sacrificed. They have done everything. They drove the kids to all their games and practices. We made all their meals all day and night, all hours. We did all the laundry, all those stinky clothes. And, what do we get for ourselves? The money went to the kids for their lessons. So this is my way of giving back to women who have put in so much for others, and to help them realize that they have value, because this is an exchange. I do not accept money for this program. And what the exchange is, for the tennis lessons, they teach me what they are known for. So they get to pick what skill, what gift, or whatever they have developed that they're known for, and they teach it to me. And if they have 4 or 5, then I have the option of picking. So it helps a woman think about her value.
I love that, Leslie.
Value. So it's the conversation that follows the tennis.
Yeah.
It's important.
Absolutely.
And I picked up some skills too, and still working on them from my tennis clients. So I like that. I just love it.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the fact that there's so much breadth and depth to your experience and life experience, and you're giving back right now. And there's a lot of
Oh, Sue-Ann, you're so kind. I'm always saying.
So let me ask this, or let me start by level setting a little bit. And I'm going to give a very simple definition right now of emotional intelligence. I'm not going to get academic right now, but I think for our audience purposes, the way that I'm going to define it is emotional intelligence refers to the ability to identify and manage one's emotions, as well as emotions of others, And so my question, and I'm going to ask Julie this to start, is why is EI so important? Why do we care about it?
Well, why it's so important? Because as you, at any level that you're in any organization, it's like shark infested waters. I mean, it's a political jungle. And I think particularly for me as an Asian, nobody taught me, how to be resilient and how to fight and how to deal with conflict. And you need to learn how to read people, read a room. And I learned, the meeting after the meeting. I'm like, there's a meeting after the meeting? What are you talking about? And when you have a boss that doesn't say what they want, and they assume and you can't figure out a boss. I think everything is about relationships. And for me, I'm a doer, right? So it's like you get stuff done, you plan, you organize. It's like, I don't have time for relationships, going out and having a drink or this. I'm like a doer. And I think emotional intelligence teaches you how to be like, now I'm just learning how to be a person, like how to be a human being and not a human doing. So I think it's extremely critical. I always say, if you want to be in leadership, you got to have alligator skin. People are going to say things to you and you cannot take them personally, and you got to be able to sleep at night. I mean, it's not worth it if you can't sleep at night and your stomach is turning and you're getting sick and you're worried constantly about failing or losing your job. So I think, it's critical for your survival, and not only for survival, but for your sustainability.
I love that. And Julie, you said something I think that's key, is like sometimes your boss doesn't even know what you want until you show it to them. And then, that person could be like, oh yeah, that's in alignment with what I was looking for or not. But just understanding how to read, to your point, the room, your boss, your peers, your direct report, it's very important. What about you, Leslie? Why is EI so important, and how does it kind of come to play?
Well, I totally agree with what Julie said. And then I was trying to think about, something around that too. But I think EI is critical if one is to be an effective communicator, an effective influencer. You need to know, one, your audience, and you need to know, two, your adversaries. And so you can't teach that. You have to listen. You have to use your eyes. You have to watch body language. You have to be practically a therapist. You can learn that. You can read a book on how to read people, but then you go out there and there are a lot of people who are very clever and can hide behind that onion. And so the EI comes in when you can get a feel for who that person really is and what the values are of that person, so that you can communicate what you need to communicate in language that person can understand. So it's not just the book learning, but it's the experience too. And I know I have learned so much from watching models, both men and women, at corporate or just out listening to people in webinars, seminars, conferences, whatever. And I'm thinking, wow, how is that person making such an impact on me? The doubter, the scholar, the analyst, back it up. Why is he or she making this impact? And I want to learn what they have in them, that emotional intelligence that I can learn so I can be a better communicator, a better leader, a more effective influencer. So that's why I think it's important.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that this is such a big topic. So, John, you're going to take it from, I would imagine, an organizational lens, maybe, as far as why is this important and why do we care about it?
Yeah, there are two reasons. So one, as an employee, what's beneficial about having emotional intelligence? And I just wanted to expand on the definition a little bit more, in that, it's really about like understanding your own emotions, like having that self-awareness, and then being able to regulate your emotions. But then there's the other side of it, which is when you're interacting, like Leslie and Julie said, in a work environment or in any kind of environment, you have to have the awareness to understand someone else's emotional stuff that's happening and be able to regulate yourself and adapt to their emotions. So it's sort of like the soup that happens. So it's, it's important in communication, leadership, but from an employee standpoint, so research suggests that the higher levels of emotional intelligence that you have, the happier you're going to be in life, because you're able to manage your emotions. And then the other piece is that you're going to have improved mental health. So that means, it could apply to academic success. It could, it could apply to professional success. So that's really important from an employee standpoint. So from a leader standpoint, and I think Leslie and Julie touched upon this too, it's like, the analogy is that, like, so this is an odd thing, but I used to swing dance for over 10 years. Like, I was obsessed with swing dancing. Even went to Sweden to learn how to swing dance. So, okay, so there's a reason I'm telling you this. So with swing dancing, it's a partnership, and there's a push and a pull that happens between the leader and the follower. And the leader it's not gender specific, but the leader is the one who, kind of manages the situation. They might maybe give a little bit of momentum for the follower or push back a little bit. So it's this dance that needs to happen. And you don't want to be the bad dancer on that dance floor as a leader, meaning you want to be able to recognize all the nuances that's happening within that dance or within the interaction that you're having with your employees or your team, because you don't want to be that person that everyone ignores. So it's highly important for both employees and leaders to have higher levels of emotional intelligence. And we'll talk about how you can develop that.
Absolutely. And I was thinking of, as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that a lot of times, emotions are not actually encouraged at work. And especially if very emotional, especially when they're like difficult news, things like that, where it's not something that's positively reinforced as a leader. Would you agree? I mean, you have to kind of figure out how you regulate yourself really before you can even do anything else. But let me ask all three of you, can you share a situation where you actually dealt and navigated through a difficult situation at work or in the community, and how did you manage through that? So I'm going to start with Leslie on that one.
Yeah, I had to think hard about this because I don't know whether you all would consider, using my EI, but it's an HR issue. And I was in my early 60s and had done well, had 4 or 5 different bosses. And then I had a new manager who was just starting out as a manager, and he was from our department. So we all knew him, he knew us. And I go to my annual review and I'm looking at it, and it's exact opposite of what had been written about my performance by 4 other managers. And I talked to him and, I said, well, I tried to put him at ease because it was obvious to me that he had something that he didn't like about me, because the work performance was the same, if not more complete, better, or whatever you want to call it, because I was 1 year more experienced. So I asked him, well, where do you see that I could improve? And how would you like me to do these tasks better? He couldn't answer, couldn't say anything. So I thought about this. I said, well, okay, I'll just try harder then. And I walked out. I did not want to confront. He was hiding. He was defensive. And I will tell you, he was African American and gay. So I thought, I don't want to be the person who's going to push here and have him claim that he's being harassed or discriminated against. And I knew him personally. I wasn't a friend of his, but I knew, he was down the aisle and over there from where I sat. So I consulted 2 of my mentors, one a male and one a female. So the male had been in our department and had done a tremendous job, promoted, several levels. And so he knew all the players. And after he listened to me, he just said, sign the report, sign the evaluation. Otherwise, you're going to be the bad guy. And they're going to look at you every year. And I said, really? Oh, okay. And this is an experienced manager. I mean, he had since gone on to several levels and very, very successful and very likable guy. I mean, so I decided, well, I'll go to this other person and ask her opinion. And she was an AVP. She knew me very well, very, very well, I would say intimately, because we were tennis partners in doubles. So you get to know, it's like being cops. You know each other intimately. So I said, Sharon, what should I do? And I told her the facts, and there was silence, and she looked at me, and she said, sign it. I said, really? And this woman is women's lib, independence, standing up for yourself, an excellent mentor. So I said, okay. She said, what you do is you wait him out because it's going to catch up with him. And he will be out of that management position. And she asked me to trust her. I said, of course I trust you. So I did it. I signed it. And a couple weeks later, our HR representative was walking the halls, and she had come up, and she has things to do in our department too. And she said, are things any better? And I forget whether I had hinted to her that something was amiss or whether there was another issue that she had to come up to our department and talk to us and management and all that, and do a 360 on this particular individual. So I said, well, you be the judge. And we stood in the hallway for 20 minutes. I was apologetic. I didn't want to take up her time, but here was somebody who asked me. So I told her exactly. And she asked me. I felt like a broken record. She said, and what did he say? What did he say? Did he make any significant? I said, no, he didn't. I don't know what to do other than, like my mentor said, wait him out. So I did, I figured, use my EI in not confronting directly, but that individual, well, one of our directors, called me in and said, are things getting any better? Because there were issues. He's not had friends in high places. So I said no. And within the year, he was demoted back to non-management, and they put him back in our department. Oh my gosh, that must have been so uncomfortable for him. I felt for him, but whatever. And he stayed there for several more years, maybe 3 or 4 more years, because who would want him? Who could recommend him? His management couldn't recommend him. It looked bad on them. So I felt sorry for the people there because I left. I retired. And eventually, he had a friend in another company, and he got a job somewhere else. So he couldn't hurt our people anymore. So I wanted to ask you, is this an honest, true exercise of emotional intelligence on my part? I don't know.
Well, Leslie, I think first of all, the fact that, you had to navigate a very complicated situation, and you actually consulted with your mentors. They know the culture. So I think it was good before you acted. So yes, I felt like you used your EI because you assessed before you acted. I think that was number one. And, you had to kind of navigate through the political scenario. And then the other thing I was thinking about was the supervisor not having EI. So the fact that he didn't have EI, obviously that impacted him in a way of getting out of leadership. So I think there were several things. What do you think, Jan and Julie? What are your thoughts?
Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like we've been talking about reading the room, and I think that's a key piece of having emotional intelligence. And while it's painful sometimes, because you wonder, like, is it that this person is out to get me, or is it that there's something truly wrong with them? This is the other thing about people and emotions and all of that complicated stuff. You know, there are people in corporate or organizational settings where, and I hate to say this, but there are sociopaths who work in organizations.
Yeah.
And, you know, and not to say that, you know, this person that you're describing was a sociopath, but that does exist. There's a great book called Snakes in Suits, which is about sociopaths that work in organizations. 1 in 25 people are, and you know, it's like varying degrees of having these tendencies. So I think that's the hardest thing when you are trying to think about your own emotional intelligence. Like, is it that person? Is it me? Is there something else going on? Is it the organizational culture that, right? Yeah. And I think that's, and it sounds like you did what you needed to do in that moment, Leslie. And thank you for sharing that. I'm sure it was.
It's hard. I don't know if I've ever told anyone outside my circle of very close friends who are tight-lipped. I said, you can't let this get out. So I'm a little nervous telling you this story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we got a comment here from one of our audiences. It says, I had a similar situation with a leader in another company. I've been surprised at the number of leaders that don't have EI. And so, I mean, Julie, like, you must see this all the time, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's like, does anybody get any training? How do they get this job? Especially in academia, you know, it's like, how'd they become a president? You know, it's like they know an excellent research topic, but they don't know how to lead.
That's true.
Yeah. So let me ask some individual questions, and I'm going to start with Julie. Just to kind of mix it up here a little bit. You've been obviously in higher education in multiple, you know, universities. Now you're a coach, and you talk to me about landing, like you are able to coach and help people land the job of their dreams. I'm like, you had me a job of my dreams. So what is it that you're doing that helps people do that?
Well, so I had an African-American woman, you know, call me and say, you know, I want some coaching. I said, well, what do you want coaching on? She goes, well, I want to know if I can be a VP. That's why I'm calling you, because you were a VP of Student Affairs. And I said, well, I'm not coaching you on that. She goes, why? I go, of course you can be a VP of Student Affairs. You've been a dean for how many years? You give 100,000% of your time. You work 24/7. We do everything, and you handle every situation from death to fires to earthquakes. So I said, I'm not coaching you on that. So if you want something else to coach you on, you know, can you be a VP? Yes, you can. So then she says, well, I want to know what are the next steps to become a VP then? I said, okay, we can work with that. And so first, you know, I help her identify what her hurdles are. What is that self-doubt that makes you think you cannot be a VP? And, you know, fear of failure. I got to be perfect before I'm in this job. I have to know all these, you know, 25 things in the job description, but I don't know one of them. And so I guess I'm not going to apply. And I help them figure out what are their mental blocks, right? Because it's all in your head. Whether it's like I'm a control freak, I'm a perfectionist. And then after we figure out all these negative self-doubt things in our head, I was like, who are you? You know, what do you bring to the table? You know, what at your core, who are you? What is the energy? What is the gift that you bring to the world? So then we identify that. And then I go into like, what do you want? Why do you want to be a VP? You know, I used to mentor all these people. I'm like, seriously, you do not want to be a VP. The headaches, the supervision is not what you think it is. It's not all, you know, wine and cheese. Okay. You got to deal with all these personnel. HR is my best friend. You know, I mean, come on. So then I work with her. What kind of leader do you want to be? What is, and then I want to train. I want to be that leader. I said, okay. And then what kind of organization do you want to work in? Public, private, large, urban, And so I kid you not, then she knows who she is. And I turn the tables like, you interview the organization, you bring so much. Why do you want to work for them? You are a blessing to that organization. Don't come with this defeatist attitude. So she knew exactly what kind of organization she wanted. So lots of jobs would come her way, or a headhunter would say, hey, here's a VP job, but she knew exactly, no, that's not me. That's not the right organizational fit. And when the dream job came, she goes, this is it. She only applied for one and she got it because she knew who she was. She knew what she wanted, and she knew she was going to, what they were looking for, she could bring to the table.
Yeah. Well, you ask big questions like, what do you want? I don't know if people know how to answer the question, what do you want? Sometimes I think that
exactly. They don't know who they are.
Yeah. And by the way, I just launched my Women of Color cohort tonight. These are the 5. So literally it was tonight, opening kickoff. And 100% of the women said to me, I want to increase my self-confidence. 100%. When I say, why do you want to be in this program? And that's an indication to your point, Julie, about I don't think people think about flipping the table, say, I'm interviewing the organization. It's like, I have to be worthy to be hired. I think that's a mentality. Yeah. So, Jan, I wanted to ask you from a perspective of the organization, how does an organization better support the employees, especially right now, and what's needed? I mean, things have just really dramatically changed.
Yeah, and Sue-Ann, congratulations on launching the new program. That's amazing. And one thing that and I'll answer the question you asked, but one thing I wanted to add to what you were saying, it's like there's something wrong in organizational systems where it's all about enhancing filling up the gap in someone and their development. Meaning it's always about, you need to change, you need to do this. And then that perpetuates this negative, mindset that could be embedded into women of color, Asian women, people of color in general, because it's always from a deficit model. And I love what Julie talked about. I wish I had you as a coach like years ago. You would have helped me so much, because you're focusing on the strengths of a person, right? And zeroing in on something that really matters to them. So I wish more organizations did that. So on that note, that's the thing, managers, leaders, organizations, it's all about understanding the unique experiences of employees. That's so important. And I don't mean by just okay, tell me a little bit about your background that happens during the interview and then they never ask about it again. Why don't you continue that conversation? So managers, please, if you are leading people, if you're leading teams, take 15 minutes to check in periodically, aside from the regular one-on-ones that you have about project updates and whatnot. Just check in. See how, continue that conversation that you had at the beginning of the interview process when you asked about, what's your background? What tell me a little bit about yourself, blah, blah, blah. Continue that conversation, because that's what people need right now, is to be heard and to be acknowledged. And it doesn't cost anything to help people to feel heard and to feel acknowledged.
Absolutely.
It doesn't cost anything.
Absolutely. And I love Gallup. And one of the things that they always talk about is that I have a supervisor at work who cares about me, and I have a best friend at work. Those are two examples of where the employee satisfaction is huge. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, any organization that has people. You want somebody to care about you.
Absolutely.
Person, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Leslie, you have had a corporate career, entrepreneur career, but you also have quite a bit of history around philanthropy. So what is it that get you excited about civic engagement?
Yeah, I thought about that when I saw this, and it made me think. And it comes down to one word: justice. It is justice for our community, for women, for the underserved. And so, on the boards that I serve on, the CAPAW, which is for women's leadership, and for OCA, which is the National Civil Rights Organization, it is justice. It is about access to education, access to medical care.
Yeah.
It's about economic justice, affordable housing. It's about all these things. And EI is very important because I'm just going to use OCA as an example. We have 35 active out of 50 chapters. We don't all agree. And we have our national board meetings with all the chapter presidents who are attending. It's not like herding cats. It's not that bad. But everyone is heard. Everyone is respectful. Tempers fly because we don't all agree. And we don't all agree, for example, on defunding the police, on admissions in higher education, things like that. And tempers run high. We've had chapters who quit, who just said, okay, we don't agree. And you guys, this is what you come up with. And they drop, they become dead chapters. But it's using the EI to get everything on the table to make people feel comfortable that they have been heard. That is the most important thing. I thought I was a good listener, taking psych classes and counseling classes, but I learned how to listen better when I was OCA national president because I was refereeing fights all the time. Chapter fights, inter-chapter fights, intra-chapter fights, individual fights. And you have to do your counseling and your therapy thing. And you have to give them the respect that they don't think that they're getting. You have to give them what they need in order for them to rise above that childlike state to, again, become more rational and a little bit more open and a little bit more flexible.
And having eyes of curiosity, right? Instead of like,
like
instead of being
outside of this, there's something else.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that. And there's a question in the audience that says, why does it seem the women are too emotional, but how important EI is in roles? It seems that most companies have EI and clarity as training, but not part of the culture. I'm going to put that on the open, whoever wants to answer that.
Go ahead, Jan.
Okay, I'll go first. Because somebody has to clean up my mess, okay? All right. Emotions are seen as something feminine that are a weakness. And to be an effective leader, you have to be calm all the time, even though you want to wring their necks because they're so stupid about something, or they're being so childlike, but you have to be even. You have to be that mother-father figure. And when someone comes to us with a problem and they get emotional about it, what is our perception of them? That they're incapable of solving their problem, for one thing, or they're immature. And that is really unfair, even though it's true. You cannot let them stay there. So emotions, I think, are seen by corporates as being a weakness. And I think this whole EI movement is important. It's critical to enable corporations and other organizations to recognize that your best managers and leaders have EI. And you got to loosen up a little bit and find out who you are. I think corporations who are not sensitive to EI, there is trouble at the top. That they are on the defensive. They don't want to look inside. And looking inside is not for everybody. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
If they don't want to, they don't want to.
Yeah.
So I've advised people to just look for another company.
You know, I wanted
somebody like that. Go, and that's the pervasive culture. Go find another company. They're not for you.
Yeah, there are 6 universal emotions: anger, fear, disgust, sadness, and enjoyment. And to say that women are too emotional, it's like, what is, I have seen men express anger at the workplace. Is that emotional? Or is that too emotional? Or is that right? Because it's tied to like the masculine form in some way, right? So this is obviously an issue that where the viewer is describing. I mean, it's an issue that's culturally inappropriate from an organizational culture standpoint, and then it's also sexist to attach emotions to a gender, because we all have universal feelings. And I think that's the big piece, is like you're saying, Leslie, like it may not be the right place if these disparities exist.
Absolutely. And Julie, what do you think from an individual, you coach, high level executives, so how does emotional intelligence come into play with emotion and their ability to move up?
Well, that's a great question. I think of my own journey and those that I coach, that you really have to manage people's impressions of you. So we all know this stereotype of Asian women. When we become decisive, or we express a little bit of anger, and then we're like, oh wow, here comes this dragon lady. Or if we show emotion, then there's this meek, mild Susie Q type of person. And so I know that when I interviewed for higher level positions, people would say I'm too serious. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to manage those impressions, and I made it in my intention was to also show another side, a more humorous side, or I can take a joke, because they see you as a robot, basically, and you're trying to display all these emotions. And it's really unfair, because when you do show your emotion, then they peg you. And and it's just it is really unfair. I don't know the answer, and I feel like it cost me a lot of losing myself a bit, because I'm actually a very positive person. And people would say, oh, you're too fun, or you're too nice, or you're too cute, or something. And in my mind, it's like, well, I can't bring my personality, all of me, to work, because then they categorize me as not a strong leader. Right. But that is part of my personality, that I am very approachable, that I am very positive, but it doesn't mean that I'm not a good leader, because I have a more kind of, a tender side, or a fun side, a warm and welcoming side. It doesn't mean I'm not a good leader. So
I think that you bring up something about what I was thinking about was the intersectionality between gender, race, and the stereotypes and the model minority myth, and the fact that our cultural values sometimes are not aligned with that Western style of leadership that's cultivated. And the fact is, we're always navigating that on the fence.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the three of you have ever been like bullied in a workplace, but I have. And one of the things that I had to navigate is the fact that even if I'm the one being bullied, I'm the problem. Like it's perceived as I'm the issue. And so I have to navigate that very, very carefully. But what I also realize is I can learn how to speak your language, which is very direct. And so it's a learned behavior that I had to learn in my emotional. It had to be in my toolkit, but I wasn't used to it.
Yeah.
But it was all white men that I was dealing with. So I had to, talk in a certain way in order to get my point across and make it kind of a more of a even, like equal footing. And the only way I could do it is I had to do it very direct style.
Yeah.
It was very hard, but it was learned. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What are some things that you can actually do to improve your EI? And I think, Jan, you mentioned this right at the beginning. Is it possible to improve it? And then how do you do it?
Yes. I think people have the potential to change, unless, again, you're a sociopath. People have the potential to change. And what I'll say is that, part of having emotional intelligence, again, it's about self-awareness. So to cultivate self-awareness, you have to be able to self-reflect. So if you are in a situation at work, with family, whatever it may be, if it wasn't the ideal interaction for you, take a minute afterward and write down how it went. What was the situation? What happened? What was my reaction to that? What can I do differently? I think we need to self-assess, just like you get performance evaluations at work. You have to do your own self-assessment in order to enhance your EQ capabilities, because so much of it is in like you understanding yourself and your emotions. And again, I mentioned what those key emotions are. If those come up for you, jot it down and keep that in mind before you go into another situation that is going to be, there's going to be conflict. Instead of avoiding the situation, go in it with a clear mind and some tools the next time around. So self-reflection. We don't write on paper anymore. I know that's not a thing, but if you can, write down.
There's something to be said about actually pen and paper.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is, but I still,
extremely important to do that.
Absolutely.
So writing down and reflecting, that's very important.
Yeah. And having the space to reflect and creating the space to reflect, because thinking is working too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So I know we're getting down to the wire. I can't believe it's already been an hour, but I'm going to do a lightning round between the three of you and say, if I were to be able to take action immediately to help myself around the EI space, what would you recommend that I do? Like something that I can do right now. I'm going to start with Julie.
Take 5. Before you respond, and I didn't do this most of my career because I'm a problem solver. So even if somebody's talking to me, I'm solving the problem in my head. Don't do that. Just shut up. Take 5 minutes and just take a step back before you respond, emotionally or in anger and all those emotions. Just take 5. And yeah, so that's mine.
I love it. My favorite phrase is, let me think about it. Yeah, absolutely. Leslie, what about you?
Oh, I totally agree. If you were to, I'll do it right now and then what you can do in the afternoon or the next morning. But my right now is what I call ice cream meditation. And what that is, or it's something that you really enjoy and it makes you feel good. Go get that ice cream, whether you're in the office or not. You go to the snack bar, get that ice cream, make yourself feel good, relax, and think about, okay, how can I feel this way when I'm in that situation again? Because by God, I don't want to feel like that again. I want to feel like the ice cream meditation. So something at the end of the day or the weekend is go walk.
Yeah.
Don't go walk in the mall. Don't go walk in your neighborhood. Go to a trail where there's forest and trees, flowers. You can see the bunnies. They come in, or you might see a deer. But just get out there. Yeah, just get out there.
Yeah.
Because that's where you talk with God. You talk with yourself.
Yeah.
Real good self-reflection time. Nobody bothers you.
Yeah. Good point. Jan, what about you?
This is going to sound very strange, but grab a mirror or grab your phone and look at yourself, because your face shows your expression, your emotions, right? So if you're thinking about something and it's bothering you, look at yourself in the mirror and see what kind of expression you have, because that tells everything. And it will also tell the other person everything about how you're feeling. So check yourself.
So true. That is so true. I mean, yeah, your words coming out of your mouth versus how you look. I mean, yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, and I would say breathe.
Breathe.
I would say breathe deeply and just, inhale, exhale, just take a minute and just, and I think sometimes just slowing it down. When things are more complicated or when things are high level stress or things, I like to slow things down just a little bit by breathing. So that's what I would say. All right. So with that, I can't believe the hour's already gone past. It was an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful for the three of you coming and having this conversation. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge and your experience.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I would love for each of you to tell the audience how they can follow you on social media or how they can stay connected to the organizations you support. Yang, can you start first?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is here, YONNA. Please find me on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty active on there. So thank you. Thank you all. This is great.
Julie.
The same with me. I'm Julie M. Wong because there's, Julie Wong's one of the most common names on the planet. So just Julie M. Wong, and you'll find me on LinkedIn.
And Leslie?
Facebook, Leslie Mo-Kaiser. LinkedIn, I don't use very much because I'm not looking for a job, but I keep up with other people. So again, Leslie Mo-Kaiser. Yeah, I amuse myself very well, it seems. So, so Facebook is good.
Awesome. And as you probably see on the ticker that's been shown on the show, how you can follow CAPAW for Sue Ann and definitely showing your support and also know about some of the upcoming events and things you can support. You can follow any of those platforms for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, their website, LinkedIn, and much more. So definitely follow them on their social media platforms. And then that way you can also be aware of any upcoming development events like what Sue Ann just kicked off today that you can be a part of, that if you happen to miss it, you can find out when you can be part of it next time. But of course, everyone, thank you again for this lovely panel and this lovely discussion. As I always say, an hour is never enough to discuss this, but these conversations is a tip of the iceberg. We always know the iceberg is a lot bigger than it appears. So let this be the start of the conversation, and you and the audience, all of you out there, to continue the conversation. Do your due diligence, find opportunities like CAPAW and other organizations that you can be part of to learn more, develop yourself, and elevate yourself to the next level. And everyone, once again, thank you for being part of today's show. You all have a great evening, and aloha to each of you.
Aloha. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it cedar lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will. So if we put Hawaii in a perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then European, of course, versus Asia. They was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. Network out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.